Good morning, everybody. Alexa, cancel. It is Monday in Holy Week, April 11th, 2022, at 9 a.m., just slightly past 9:06 to my watch right now. I'm a little embarrassed on that, but more later. It's not the first time it's happened before, but sometimes I'm not happy with with how quickly I respond to the bell. You know, it just depends on what the reasons are, but nothing that hasn't happened a zillion times before. Anyway, so, and it's time for the Angelus and a psalm. Angelus Domini nunciavit Mariae, et concepti de Spiritus Sancto. Ave Maria, gratia plena Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Ecce ancilla Domini, fiat mihi secundum verbum tuum. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Et verbum caro factum est, et habitavit in nobis. Ave Maria, gratia plena Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Ora pro nobis sancta Dei genitrix, ut digni efficiamur, permissionibus Christi. Oremus. Gratiam tuum quaesimus Domini, mensibus nostris infunde, ut qui angelo nunciante Christi filii tui incarnationem coniovimus, per passionem eis et crucem, ad resurrectionis gloriam perdicamur. Per iundum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. If I did not pray and I did not have the connection to God that I do, I don't know what I would do. Speaking specifically as a drug addict, because so many of my friends who I think I think dearly of, but they are not too fond of me because, in part at least, and probably in large part, because of the principles I live by, things that are important to me. And I just, well, without trying to respecting them just for the difference of perspective without justification, I hate seeing them suffer. Anyway, I'm also aware, though, that it's God's grace. It's not just Justin talking about principles and method and all this kind of stuff that, trying to sell people on the idea of what I'm saying, of prayer, well, it goes well beyond that. But yeah, it's not about me trying to convince, really, that is vexing, and at the same time, it provides some peace knowing that as well. It's interesting. So this morning, actually, grab my glasses real quick. Here they are. So, what do you think you're going to get sometimes when you have a drug addict who has occasional relapses, has been sick the last year plus, and hasn't been in church for Holy Week and it's been a while now. The point even being that I cannot remember off the top of my head when I was last in church for Holy Week. So that, be that as it may, you would expect a little bit of disorganization, as there is. But you know what? I'm grateful to God that I'm as together as I am right now with all the challenges and all the things that I'm going through. And that's something to be celebrated. I don't say that I'm not speaking to, I'm not defending myself against any naysayers. I'm just giving myself a pep talk a little bit right now. Thank you, Lord. And let's see here. Oops. I also did that to get that stuff out in the open air. Things we don't want to say that cause us anxiety. Psalm 51. That's what we'll do. There's some good advice, okay? When you're looking for something in a book you normally know very well, but it's one of those days where you don't know where it is right now, not know where it is slowly as you look through it, waiting to come up, because it'll look a lot better and you'll look a lot less flustered. That is my pro tip for this morning. Okay, Psalm 51. Verses 1 through 20. Have mercy on me, God, in your kindness. In your compassion, blot out my offense. Oh, wash me more and more from my guilt, and cleanse me from my sin. My offenses, truly, I know them. My sin is always before me. Against you, you alone, have I sinned. What is evil in your sight I have done, that you may be justified when you give sentence, and be without reproach when you judge. O see, in guilt I was born, a sinner was I conceived. Indeed, you love truth in the heart. Then in the secret of my heart, teach me wisdom. O purify me, then I shall be clean. O wash me, I shall be whiter than snow. Make me hear rejoicing and gladness, that the bones you have crushed may revive. From my sins turn away your face and blot out all my guilt. A pure heart create for me, O God. put a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, nor deprive me of your Holy Spirit. Give me again the joy of your help. With the spirit of fervor sustain me, that I may teach transgressors your ways, and sinners may return to you. We're just talking about that, right? Well, not sinners, but, I think you can put together what I was saying there. Oh, rescue me, wayward. Oh, rescue me, God, my helper, and my tongue shall ring out your goodness. O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall declare your praise. For in sacrifice you take no delight. Burnt offering from me you would refuse. My sacrifice, a contrite spirit, a humbled contrite heart, heart you will not spurn. In your goodness show favor to Zion. Rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Then you will be pleased with lawful sacrifice, burnt offerings wholly consumed. Then you will be offered young bulls on your altar. Such as it's been for a long time now, I haven't shared as much during prayer aloud, and since I'm feeling inclined to do that right now, I'm going to do it again, just like last night. I was immediately struck at how the tone of this psalm conflicted with my pep talk. Of course, those things happen all the time. Today, that was not such a big deal to me emotionally. Other days, when you read something that kind of just tells you, reinforces the direct opposite point or exact opposite point of the one that you're needing to emphasize for that day, it can be. Pray for grace. I think it's a skill, such as something can be learned like that. It's definitely something you can practice, but it's grace. And do it without having to make the one you need to avoid less true. One thing that is amazing to me, continues to be amazing, is how let's take, I shouldn't get into this right now, probably. I'm digging Lord, do you really want me to talk about that? I was talking to my father last night about 1 Thessalonians, and I forget, which chapter was it? But basically, the church, people of the church, were complaining, complaining to Paul that he, wait for this, my mind is, I'm sorry for this right now. The best thing to do is not to force it and just keep talking when you shouldn't, right? They were worried about what would happen to the souls that had died before Christ had returned to lead them all into heaven. Because eschatology and the idea that Christ would be coming back real soon was, not like 2,000 years later, where we're, honestly, we're like, yeah, second coming, not holding my, be honest, people are like, not holding my breath, you know what I mean, right? Because it's, of course, God wants us to be completely surprised by that. So, but it was a very different thing back then in like 50, Christ had just died, had been crucified 50 years prior to like the founding of the church in Thessalonica. And so anyway, the mindset was such then that, what are we going to do? Because he won't be able to, if the people die first and Christ isn't here yet to lead us all into heaven, what's going to happen? They're going to miss out. And Paul said, Well, let's read it real quick. But I'm going to paraphrase and then we'll read it as best as I can right now. He said that, no, don't worry, because what's going to happen is the Lord will descend from heaven, and the dead will be raised first, and then we'll meet the Lord in the air. After he's gotten, after the dead are raised to go back into heaven, we'll meet the Lord in the air on a cloud and go to heaven, basically. And it's, now, I think our modern ears, without any encouragement to do otherwise, hear these words. When we hear him talk about the logistics of something like this, we kind of just start to paraphrase. You know what I mean? No one, I don't think people are like, most people are like, okay, remember how he says this exactly, like they're taking measurements to build something. You know what I mean? And not like that. It's like, okay, yeah, we're all gonna, we're all basically going to be reunited in Christ, and he's going to fix everything. It's the idea that, most Christians probably get from that message, At least I've always taken it to mean that when a passage of Scripture has dealt with something that, like, clearly is, okay, either questionable to our modern scientific minds, or just, just flat out not true. All right, now I'm going to use this piece of Scripture to get back to what I mean by how something can be not true and still totally true. And not like in a way that you have to kind of be fake about, like, no, that's true, and you feel it's not. That's one of the things that amazes me about God. So let's do this real quick. I'm just happy to be not too exhausted and too in pain or discomfort to run off and end the video so quickly. So that's wonderful. Thanks be to God. Okay. Okay, ready? So we're 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have died. For this we declare to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will by no means precede those who have died. Honestly, one of the things I love about Paul is not necessarily that I agree with, most of what's coming out of his mouth all the time, but that he's so, I'm still on the same page with him even when I am not, honestly. And I'm sorry that, let's be honest about how funny it is of how convicted he is of the logistics of this as a literal thing, like as if, yeah. And I know exactly why he is, because the Lord told him that, absolutely, and gave him the certainty of it, and so you can do no other. But, wow, right? You don't know what's going to happen? Well, don't worry, I'm going to tell you, and here it is. For the Lord himself, with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpet, will descend from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up in the clouds together with them to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. That's all you got to tell them. You should be fine on that. But no, it was a different time. And, the idea, in Paul's time, the idea of a Christianity that had not experienced the parousia by this point in time is a very different beast than the church of, not to call it the beast, you know what I mean? Poor choice of metaphor there or whatever, but it's a very different thing. And if you think that's kind of ending on a down note, I mean, like, well, you know what? We're coming to Good Friday, so there we go. It's appropriate. All right, so let's take medication before we forget that, and we'll move on from there. You know what I do, by the Lord's grace, when I'm stressed out emotionally, kind of like I am right now? I remember first how I would treat other people in that situation. Okay? And then, for example, if it involves other people, the way you feel involves other people. In this case, not so much. And on the other hand, yeah, but immediately not so much. And also, am I doing the Lord's will to the best of my ability? Am I making that which is really manifest by nothing, if you want to know the truth. But we can't accept that really as humans. We have to do something. Humans, we have to take steps, right? We have to feel like we're doing something. But the Lord makes us do it anyway. So yeah, so assuming we take those steps, though, you know what I mean? One of the things that kills me, especially as a drug addict, is that even to this day, people try to, well, not try, but they can't help but see addiction as being a moral failing somehow, or something you could just make things different if you really tried hard enough, if you really wanted to. And there's a lot of other things like that, but drug addiction is one of them. And I guess what I'm saying is I often have to verbalize how it is that things need to be with myself and other people around me so that they are aware of that, or at least to kind of, give something of a buffer. Oh. I don't know about you, but in my personal experience too, well, I come from a family that, on both sides, like many out there, who kind of pick your weaknesses to attack, you know. Which our weaknesses are our weaknesses, right? So we know that they are. It's something that we want to do something about in some way. You know what I mean? It's not like it's. There's no need to point out, right? But a lot of times we're just trying to help people too. And I mean, strangely enough, or we just feel like we have to say something. So, I mean, yeah, it's a bad habit, but it can be done with the best of intentions often enough as well. Anyway, the reason I say this is because, I at times like these, I'm used to defending myself around people that, and myself, around other people and myself who don't treat me as I should during those times, like, I'm trying to be accurate here, but oh Lord, if you want me to say something more flattering, then give me that line. Give me those words. That's what I thought. All right. In the movie America, there we go, even better by proxy. It takes it off me, so I don't have to give a personal example. But we're familiar with family members like Annette Bening in American Beauty, who, after her daughter's cheerleading event or whatever at the basketball game, after whatever they call that show or routine or whatever. Anyway, I probably normally know any, but just not right now, I'm sure. She says, you didn't screw up once. Like, that's the compliment, right? And if you get that from people often enough, or if it's the norm, then you probably don't even think anything of it, really. You just kind of either take it as, well, you take it with the negative implications, or you have learned to kind of sanitize it and take it as a compliment, because that's how that person speaks. Instead of coming out with something complimentary about it, other than, like, you didn't fuck up, because you usually fuck up, right? Like, I mean, if you are doing a prayer video and you are a drug addict and you're intoxicated doing it, right? First of all, I don't think that you should say, well, I mean, unless asked, I think, but, like, your feedback to that person should be positive. I mean, really positive. I know mine would be to somebody, because I've never seen it, really. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's not often, and it's a very good thing. Again, as I said earlier and last night, if we had more drug addicts praying, using drug addicts praying, the world would be in a much better place. I know my friends would be much better off if they were more spiritually connected, even if it's not just, even outside of Christianity. So, I'm used to having to defend myself. Why, even today, believe it or not. And often I don't get as much negativity about things, partially because I've gotten really good at just kind of like cherry picking what I respond to, you know, because I usually speak by text to my parents. So my mom, like, you know, to be honest, she likes to pick fights, and I have gotten really good at just not seeing that when I go by. You know, I'll wait till something nice comes up again, then I'll respond to that. Something that, you know, if something inappropriate comes up, and honestly, it's weird having. I don't want to have parents that I'm saying that I can say that about without being full of shit. You know what I mean? Like parents that do unparently things. But a lot of parents do. I don't really want that right now, but it's the lot. And one of the ways I deal with it is by not saying it out loud, because I don't know. It feels strange to me. Anyway, but my parents and I get along, to be quite honest with you, is because I don't engage their bullshit. And I'm glad that I don't. It makes me a lot happier. But when I review the text, right? You know, because there are some texts I don't even read. I don't even read because I know that I don't have to, and it's just bad news. Like, and I don't like saying that out loud, but that's the reality. And one of the ways I make that less of a reality is by, you know, I focus on what we do have, what my father and I do have in common, what we do share, which is a lot, but not much love is coming from him these days, and I don't know why that is. I know it has nothing to do with me. It never does, right? You know, another reason I don't like talking about these sorts of things is that it's very hard to. I think it's very hard to automatically, or just as a matter of course, in criticizing a family member, you know, father or mother, like that, get someone on your side as if, like, you know, wait a minute, there's two sides to every story. How do we know that you know, like, that's another reason I don't like to talk about it, because it's true. You don't know. You have no idea how I'm looking at that situation, you know? Because in my parents' mind, on certain things, I'm the one that's full of shit, or at least, you know, they can't get on the same page. So it depends on who you listen to, right? Well, I mean, yes and no, but enough that it makes me not want to speak about it. Yes, in that sense, because I don't need to. You know, I'm straight on it, and I know what I need to do, and I do what I'm supposed to do as much as I possibly can. They are the ones that are not doing that. But just like my addiction, for example, it's not really their fault. They're doing the best that they can. You know? So let's go ahead and log this before I go on anymore. All right. So we go here. Right now, I would so fail one of those, you know, tests that's like asking you questions and then having you do something else with your hands or whatever. Couldn't do that right now. Feels much better when you say as much, though. The anxiety you may have about exactly that does diminish a little bit, because guess what? It's okay. It's okay. When you're doing your best, it is always okay. Other people may not feel that. Of course, we may not always feel it's okay on the other end, because sometimes it may not be. For example, your best may not be good enough for someone else's standard on something, and if it affects them, yeah. See this? Lord, come on here. Let's do one or the other. All right. I'm going to have to drop that to get this done. Lord's Prayer. What I try to do as much as possible. If I feel anxiety about something that is making me want to rush, I do the opposite and try to slow down as much as possible. That's the thing to do. That's what you need to do in those situations. And God's grace with that for us all varies. It will vary. Some days, I wish I could always feel at most as anxious as I do right now in situations like this. I don't feel, I'm able to slow down if I need to. Things are taking me longer than they would on a typical day, and I'm pretty much okay with that, right? I'm talking about it and able to talk about it. But that doesn't mean that a week from now I could have the same situation happen and feel as at ease about it. Unfortunately. Unfortunately to us, God seems to see it differently, though. For some reason, he likes that variety, challenge, bullshit. I don't know. All of the above. But in general, and I've said this a few times recently, I made this point of, we just need to focus on what we have in common with each other, raise each other up. You know what I mean? Of course, when people are not doing what they're supposed to do, yeah, we need to point it out. But I think that making an active effort, a conscious effort, to try to lift people up, to make people feel good, without being fake about it, because then it's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like compliments that don't mean anything. You know what I mean? Just come up with a compliment. Like, don't do that, because people will pick up on that, and it won't have that effect. Gratitudes and prayers and evening prayer. But, one thing at a time. Oh, this is tough. These are ideas that I love to talk about and want to talk about. So let me show you this right now. Oh, no, I cannot because I only logged. Here we go. Just caught up to finish yesterday's. Here we go. Check what's on as of this morning. At least I know where to look instead of having one randomly chosen that morning. That made I was like, whew, okay, that's cool. I was kind of panicking there for a minute. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are really bad at apologizing when they need to. Because a lot of times when you apologize, right, I found anyway, I still do it, and it's not a deterrent for the most part. But when you apologize, a lot of times people, that's when they go in for the attack. And you start getting blamed for even more than what you accept. You know what I mean? People are, so like, once someone admits vulnerability in the group, it's like, oh, shoot, they become the scapegoat. Or just like the punching bag, So you kind of can't blame people to not want to go there, but you gotta. Very embarrassing right now, but you know what? These things, these ideas that are coming out right now are more important than me not finding this psalm in a timely manner. So I'm somewhat tolerant of that, which helps because it would happen no matter what, but just saying. Okay, it's back here. Oh, come on. This ministry, though, in part, as I've said, what I want to try to do is do exactly this. Most of us don't feel comfortable in situations like I am right now on camera. You know what I mean? Most people don't want to do that. They will not do it willingly, right? But you need to know, if you're one of those people, that you are okay even on your imperfect days, even when there are people that will attack you. Many won't, and of course the ones that you expect to get attacked by, that you had experience up until then, right? I mean, yeah, they'll be there doing that attacking, but you'll be getting okay with yourself, becoming more at peace with yourself, more in tune with well, some people call that God consciousness. I definitely do. That's part of it. So what I'm saying is yeah, you'll have that criticism there, but you will be so much more fulfilled and at ease and in harmony with yourself and the rest of creation around you she'll become a yoga instructor. No, but like, I didn't mean to make it, you know, any kind of, I didn't mean to make that sound perhaps unrealistically attainable or, you know, undesirable, like you're going to suddenly turn into, you know, a meditation guru or anything like that. But don't be afraid to apologize. Be more concerned with trying to do the right thing, which is apologize when you've done something you know you shouldn't. And be upset or bothered when you don't. Enough to do it. You know what I mean? Like, not, well, a lot of people beat themselves over the head with stuff that they don't intend to do anything about, which is kind of useless. But again, we can't help it if we do that. But yeah, you know, try to light a fire under your own ass, right? Which is us taking steps. Hopefully God will do this for you to kind of move on those things. That means more, honestly, I don't really care so much that people apologize to me. I'm not a big, like, you owe me an apology. You know, I mean, I know when people owe me an apology, but, you know, it's not, what I would like most importantly is to, you know, just have the situation usually, ideally just kind of not be like that anymore. And that's good. You don't need to apologize to me. It's not as important. It does show me your character, though, and what kind of person you are. I mean, so I appreciate it and would appreciate it for that, but I don't go around asking for apologies from people or expecting them. It's more important to me that I catch things I need to apologize for. You know, infinitely more important. See, my landlord, just pointing this out as a point of fact, would probably be astounded at a statement like that, really, you know, because he doesn't think like that at all. He has a different way of approaching stuff, but, you know, yeah. Okay, back to this. Easter week yet. Holy year 2. Psalm 51, there we go. All right. All this stuff is what I call maintaining the integrity of the form, by the way, which is, you know, learning how to simplify when you need to. It's managing God's grace, but it's taking steps to do those things. Okay, so here we go. And to slow down. When you start to have difficulty, you don't fix it by just stumbling but rushing, getting faster at it, right? You know? In piano, or playing any musical instrument, the difficult passages, the faster passages, how do you master it? By going slower and slower and slower until you can get it. And then speeding it up. So it's pretty much the same thing. It is exactly the same thing with anything. You know, when we're having difficulty and can't do a situation, you don't then go, aha, let me rush through it. Unless it's, you know, I don't know, maybe a conversation that you're trying to avoid, right, with someone. That might count, but honestly, existentially, no, it doesn't count. That still gets you, because that conversation that you're trying to avoid is probably something that you should get comfortable with talking about. You know what I mean? It's probably, it's a personal issue. It's again, yeah, there are things that are bona fide examples of stuff that are just inappropriate. No, I don't need to do that. But more often than not, assuming that someone's intentions are genuine, they need to talk about whatever it is, and we should be able to hear the other side of the conversation, right? I made that way too pat right there, but the only thing we can do is our best, you know? Use your best judgment on those situations. There's no way to know the answer to that question that I just said to figure out, then proceed from there. There really isn't any way to know that 100% all the time. Call it 9:30 a.m. Okay. And here is our lisinopril, vitamin D3 2000 units, and emergency. Let's leave all of those loose ends, conversational loose ends I brought up, which, wow, there's a myriad or directions to go with that, to continue on, things to say. But we're not right now, because it's a bad time. Even though it's a good time to do so, it's also at this, conversely a bad time, not the best time in a way, right? A better time than other times lately, but still not the time to elaborate when you can't do it, right? Don't elaborate when you can't. Pro tip. So let's take a few moments, maybe a few minutes, to close this video. Silence, meditation, listening for God. That's often when God will give me something that's ridiculously ungodly sounding, and I'm like, we're going to go for 4 minutes of silence. I'm using a watch to help me. not deal with that right now because it'll sidetrack me. My usual intent with time-outing myself like that is to not do anything physically during that time, ideally, but just as I was about to berate myself for that, at the same time, no, that's listening for God, though, because what came out is, what came out. It's amazing how we put God in the box. But anyway, that watch beeping right now, admittedly, is distracting enough from my train of thought right now. Isn't that crazy? It literally poses some type of obstacle to me getting through these points. Like, wow. Now, granted, it could be a lot worse, but it's there. You want to be a strong person? Admit those things on video about yourself. Like, yeah, you don't want to do that, right? But let me tell you, when you are comfortable enough with yourself to do that, that's when you get peace. When you are okay with yourself as God made you. And when your priority is becoming that and growing into that more so than impressing other people, then you'll have the kind of strength that you think is attainable, let's say, with, it could be any variety of things, material wealth or respect in a field or whatever. Whatever else that's anything but that. So, I'm going to try to end. Let's see what the Lord does neatly. At the same time, honestly, if this video ran on till the next, if it ran into the next prayer video, I would happily do it, because more prayer time, yes. More thinking about God, yes. More thinking about the divine, yes. Time out yourself. Do that. That's another thing people have a lot of difficulty with, especially if it's done by someone else. You know what I mean? Someone else shutting you up. One thing I used to be good at, again, these things vary with our emotions and time in life. One thing I used to be great at, and I used to pride myself on this point, seriously, because I thought it was pretty awesome, because no one else I knew could do it. It took a lot of strength, and I was like, yes. Have you ever been in an argument with someone, and both sides have gotten loud and they've told you to shut up? Have you ever done it? When you really didn't want, when they were wrong, let's say it was a clear case of right and wrong, and you were right, okay, and they got loud, and in a situation where your ego would not want to let them have the last word and have it end there, practice it, do it. I guarantee you what you'll gain from that no matter how good you get at it, if you continually work at it, wherever you end up on that, wherever God brings you to bear on that, you will be better off, even for whatever ego damage you suffer. You will be way better off that it won't even matter to you. So when we do it to ourselves, most people don't have that skill either. So it's a good one to do. I had a friend of mine that laughed at me, and I kind of laughed at his laughing at me, because it's true. You don't find people in situations where they're like, I can't control myself right now. I'm going to set a watch and stop. Like, I know, and that's part of that problem, right? A little bit. Like, maybe we should, Now, granted, honestly, I'm just here to tell you, as disorganized as I may feel right now and am with things, it's been a lot worse and a lot less controllable at that time. So I have different methods, I have a different paradigm for how to deal with that, because it's always about mitigation, let's say, in a situation like that, um, simplifying further and further and further as you're able, though, If you can't simplify, yeah, you're kind of fucked a little bit. And the idea is you need to be okay being fucked sometimes, even though it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant to be in a fucked situation where you're fucked. Let's say it's one where you are negatively impacting other people enough to hear blowback from them as well as yourself. The truth is, if you cannot do anything about it, do everything that you can, but and feel bad, of course, for naturally what you're not able to provide, but do your best not to let it get more to go past that. You know what I mean? For example, if you've lied to somebody, but they think that you're a piece of shit who doesn't deserve to live because you lied, like that's going past the wrongdoing that you committed. You know what I mean? That discussion is a big part of working the steps in AA, actually, is coming to understand that, because a lot of alcoholics, when they go and make their amends, it's true, there's so much damage, people are like, you know what, I don't want to fucking talk to you. I don't, everything you say is, and they tell you in AA, which is great, they tell you, yeah, don't worry about it, because they're right. You know what I mean? Do something. Let your actions show it, really, And then, don't tell people what you're going to do. What you're going to do so much is maybe describe what you have already done, especially if you have a bad track record for that. And I did at one time, and I adjusted that, because honestly, the ego, the blows to my ego were too much, so I just, stopped. If you have a bad track record and you announce a lot of shit beforehand, you'll feel a lot better if you stop doing that. It's nothing, this all kind of ties into that. It's all maintaining the integrity of the form, you know what I mean? A manageable footprint about ourselves. Now, I'm talking about it in the context of self-improvement, the language of like self-improvement, but this is it's all by the grace of God and all connected to God. I'm just using a different vocabulary for it because we need to, we need to talk about ways we can do things to help God help us, even though it's amazing. Anyway, also, I really do wonder how many people ask themselves these questions, or just kind of go about their day with these thoughts in their mind. Because honestly, a lot of people don't. And I'm not saying that to call them. I'm not starting to talk shit here and criticize people. But matter of factly speaking, would the world be a better place with more of you in it? Do you feel that way? If there were more people doing what you do, would you be a happier person for it? And of course, there are different ways to answer that question. We all have different values and stuff like that. No, what I'm getting at more essentially, more basically, whatever, is, do you go about your day doing something other than minimizing the adversity you bring to other people? Not just like, I don't try to do people wrong, but you also, put thought into like, I don't want to waste more of your time. I don't want to, I don't want to burden you in any way. So that means I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to try my best, right? I'm not getting on a self-righteous kick here. I mean, we all, the key is trying your best and having that as a guideline. Now, these are best rhetorical questions, because the people that don't, of course, they're going to say whatever, and you can just turn it off. You usually don't want to. I don't want to hear their answers anyway. The people that I know that they don't, I would never ask these questions, because the answer, honestly, it disgusts me sometimes. Like, oh my God, I'm not gonna, because they're words that honestly, maybe they make sense in that person's head, but they have no bearing on the situation in any truthful way, such that we use language to describe things accurately. It doesn't do that. But it's, again, people do the best they can, but I try to save myself the misery of that. Sometimes. What I'm trying to say is, if you know someone is a con artist, right, you're not going to go and like ask them for stuff they're going to try to con you on, right? Because you want to listen to that. Most of the time we don't, right? It gets, honestly, it gets difficult with romantic relationships, though. A lot of times then, we do. It's amazing the relationship we have with another person's dishonesty at times, in that we're willing to engage in ways that we wouldn't outside of that context. But anyway, usually no, we don't want to listen to language that isn't going to tell us anything useful, right? Then there's the whole issue of people that don't put a lot of thought into what's really useful. You know what I mean? But, well, what can you do? Do you actively go about life attempting to minimize others' adversity? And do you try to encourage them to be strong and happy? Now, without criticizing, it's a criticism, but, it's not me talking shit. Let me put it that way. Because I don't feel any anger, but I cannot, for example, it's a situation where if I'm being truthful, it's this and not the other. And I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to say it. So, without apology, but with that much of a preface. My landlord, okay, is actively not, he's not this kind of person. He would, of course, tell you that he is, and he, well, that's interesting. Again, I'm trying to make the point without blaming him, you know what I mean, or taking on a negative tone. I'm not trying to put him down, It was just that he was the first honest example of this concept that came to mind, because it's so, well, it's big in my life right now with what's going on. So I thought of it. But anyway, so with that said, no. And those are complicated questions most of the time to answer with certainty for someone else, except in certain cases where clearly it's not. For example, I'm not going to get into that because, again, the point here is not to, I don't want to go on a rant, but no, he doesn't. He does not do that. He could not do that and do what he's doing. I can leave it at that. And you know what? Now, Jack, I'm going to jump on your side here with this and defend you, because you know what? Honestly, that's not up to us. We have to do what we have to do. And honestly, if you've got to do something that, is like that, I would encourage you to be as comfortable as you can with it. If you can't do anything, if you can't do anything about it, that's a more wordy way of saying it is what it is, I'm doing what I do, you're doing what you do. And I don't talk about the Lord being any more against you, or, my friend and your enemy, because just as I do what I do, the Lord is having you do what you do. A lot of humans are like, what the hell? God isn't supposed to do that, and we don't want to think about it. Because, yeah, it is a little bit like, okay, usually if you're my friend, you're not supposed to be like, key in my car and like stealing money. You know what I mean? All those things that friends don't do. Like, honestly, God does a lot of things that friends don't do. And so, but without explanation, which I cannot give, I can offer you my own conviction succinctly, saying that, but I'm still convinced of God's ultimate goodness. He, not convinced by argument, but by example. Even that said, no shit, right? That's why we're here. But that blows my mind, because I've always been, again, not a self-righteous kick, but my mindset my entire life is, those have always been big priorities to me. I don't want to, the innocent, I don't want to cause anybody undue adversity. And there was a time in my life where I rather enjoyed, though, causing the people that I felt deserved the adversity. Like, my attitude back then was, if you got anger, you have resentment, take it out on the assholes who deserve it. Now, now it's been some time, thank God, since I have been of that mindset. But, I would still say that, hey, if you're going to mistreat people, at least pick the people, at least, I guess, to my mind, I would say at least pick the people that are probably, not the ones that should not get it at all, right? That's the point. Even more importantly than those that are more deserving is definitely don't give it to people that you really shouldn't, but the world doesn't work that way. It's fascinating. It doesn't, like, to someone that's gonna, to a lot of people that are going to rob somebody or do something, that's like a vicious invasion of their personhood, of their idea, just something that's, it's an intrusion, like a really nasty breach of personal boundaries. A lot of times if people are willing to do that to a certain degree, it doesn't really matter of things like where the rest of us would say, God, you robbed a blind person in a wheelchair? Like, come on, could you at least find, no, to them, it doesn't make a difference. It really doesn't. If they did, they probably wouldn't have that problem, right? My goal, honestly, is to be as free as much as possible of people in situations like that in my life, so I can have have an attitude and a feeling about it that is less driven by personal negative feelings caused by those people in my life. Because it's much easier to be tolerant and understanding of people the less personally inflicted you are by their damage, right? So ideally that, but we can't help. There's no way we can all have talk in theory about having a great attitude about something, but like, there's no way, let's say, you could be in a situation like the Jews in Nazi Germany and not have some, all the way through it, all the way, some are, absolutely, but most humans are not going to have, a pleasant attitude toward the Germans, right? Or even just about the experience themselves. How can you be, it's understandably so, of course. But the more that we can do those things, as much as possible, So, what I'm trying to say is we have to accept our ugliness such that it is, because some of it is unavoidable. There are some truths that are not truths, right? And what I mean by that, there are some truths that we've kind of come to accept that in reality, it's not that way. For example, like, you can quit smoking cigarettes if you try hard enough, okay? Well, sure, we should all kind of take that approach, but also realize that, you know what? That's not true. We can't just do something just because we want to, even when it feels that way. And when I can try anything, just keep pushing your limits and see if you call all the shots in that, and you will learn that no, you don't. I found, for example, like, as an addict, that point has been hammered home to me so many times in a way that people that don't struggle with something like addiction. Lucky for them in a way, they don't have to kind of figure that out. But they are not in control of something that they often will get blamed for. Like, look at, for example, like, just the fact that I have a disability, that I'm a drug addict, that I do meth, and I relapse not infrequently, is enough for some people to think that, I mean, a whole bunch of other stuff about me that isn't true. But I'll be honest with you, a whole bunch of stuff that is generally true for pretty much everyone else you're going to meet. That's, I mean, just being honest about it. Yeah, that is, but still, for example, I always think that we should have, when we get somebody in front of us, when we meet someone for the first time, what we know about them helps us manage our expectations, should certainly, or helps us shape them. But like, I don't know. For myself, yeah, it's like, thanks for the information. If somebody gives me a heads up about something, that friends will tell you about, like, just know that, I don't know. Like if someone tells you that someone lies a lot, before you meet them, like, okay, like so-and-so is a big liar. I'm like, okay, I've heard it, but, if it's a problem, honestly, that person's going to make me aware of it themselves. So I'm always like, I've heard of it, but I'm not going into it like it's already set in stone and you can't change it, you're a liar. You know what I mean? I'm letting that person show me that, really. Kind of with that in mind, as a little, just so I'm not even caught unawares. But it doesn't shape my attitude in most cases. So what I'm saying is that when I meet someone that is a meth addict, well, there are many different types of meth addicts and there are many different types of people. And even though we know where someone is generally going to fall in to that within a short while, I always kind of let that be, or not be the case, because it may not be. And you know why I do that? Because I'm that one person that is different from all my friends as a drug addict, in that sense anyway. So like, I kind of, that's an important point to me. That's something that, you should watch out for, because of course, right? Because I'm that guy that gets screwed over by that. But they're not one and the same. They're not one and the same. Just because you do drugs doesn't mean that you can't pray. Doesn't mean that you can't hold values like those I just talked about, just most immediately, and all throughout this video, with some importance in you, that doesn't impact that automatically. It doesn't have to. I mean, that's almost as silly as saying, well, if you're taking Tylenol just makes you murder people. Even if the drug Tylenol were banned because like it made people homicidal in a lot of cases, and it wasn't. Even then, saying taking Tylenol makes you murder people is still a short-sighted. Evaluation of what's happening there. I'm not getting overly focused on semantics here. Hear me out. Okay? It's well and good, it's well enough to understand that, like, in most cases, if you do this, this is going to be one of the major results of that. This is what's going to kind of come out of that. Like, yes, absolutely. I'm not saying don't admit that. But what I'm saying is that drugs don't make people do that. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing as if you add 2 + 2, you get 4. It's not. People using drugs don't usually do prayer videos, okay? That's true. But it's not, for example, like, you can't do prayer videos if you're on drugs, let's say, or you can't do certain things, or you can't be, again, there's that societal mindset of drug addiction being a moral failing, first of all, right? Something that you could change if you wanted to, or even if you, well, I don't know, even aside from that your life can't be moving toward anything good if it's moving toward that or involves that. Not with the certainty that 2 + 2 will yield you 4. Like, no. There's some, you know what I mean? It may be a common result of, but it does not mean the same thing as, it is not that, you know what I mean? Does that make sense to you? Like, I'm thinking of in programming the equality operator versus the equal sign. I think it's been a while right now, but the concept of something being equivalent to, like it can be used in place of versus equal to something. For example, okay, we are all equal as humans, right? But for example, there are differences that don't make, like, okay, if you need a short black guy for a part in a movie, right? Well, then anyone else that's not that is not going to, not going to be the equivalent, even if they are equal, right? You know what I mean? It's meaning not the same thing. Like, so even though all people are equal, a tall Mexican dude is not the same thing as a short South Korean dude or a fat, Texan. There we go, right? I was like, all right, that's, I was like, fat, oh no. Yeah, who are we gonna like pin that on? And the Lord gave, that's the safest option to go with. And yeah, you have to call people fat out loud and feel bad about it. But so no, it is not the same thing, and it's important, I think, to understand that about drugs, because it's an issue not only about drugs. It is more about people, about how we think of other people, how we think of ourselves, and it's important enough that I think if you're going to get anywhere, and not just but I'm going to state this through my, as seen through my eyes and heard through my mouth, I guess, right now, that you need to be thinking about those things if you really want to get somewhere in life. That's important. We all have different attitudes of success. But to me, honestly, like, if you haven't spent time on these things here yet, I'm not impressed by how much money you have in the bank. I am not impressed with, whatever clothes you wear, or car you drive, or just anything like that. Anything. To me, that's putting the cart before the horse. I'm like, you know what? That is not impressive. Knowing how to not become bitter and pissed off as a person the older you get is a more impressive attainment. Okay? A more impressive achievement. Which is the word I would have went with first, had my mind been more organized right now. Then in fact, it's not only a question of that, it's a question, it's more along the lines of, again, it doesn't even make sense that you would do anything else, to my mindset. That doesn't mean it's the only way or the only way that's valuable, just the only way that's valuable really in my mind, because that's the way I see it. Fuck me. Really. But, I mean, certainly everyone can, it's something that we can all agree to, what I just said, right? People will go, absolutely, you have to make sure you know yourself, and you kind of, that the house is taken care of, your housekeeping is good before you go outside and try to interact and impact the rest of the world. Everyone would agree to that, right? Even people that don't do it, because we all are on a spectrum there, right? But some people, oh boy, oh my Lord, some people, it's like, Jesus. Like my friend Jimmy, I've said this a few times, God love him. He is oh my God, he's one of the most dishonest people I know. And it's funny because I don't know many other people that would look for the opportunity to protest their innocence to you, like excessively, than him too. Like most people wouldn't, he protests his innocence even when it's not challenged more than most people would, which is usually right. That is, first of all, it's a sign. Like honestly, I'm one of the most honest people I know, and I don't defend my honesty very much because it's not going to, whatever, you'll see if you should believe me or not. And it varies, right? Because if you find myself in a situation where you're dealing with me and my performance in that area, my interaction with you is not up to snuff, then you're going to know, I see what you're doing there. It's not, and I'm going to respond appropriately. So I don't feel like I need to pad people on like how good of a person I am or like what, you know what I mean? In fact, it to me, again, it comes off as shady. It comes, those are things that you shouldn't have to kind of tell people, like, just in case you didn't know, let me give you a pep talk on how great of a person I am and how, like, da 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 da. Just do what you do and I'll see that. So, where are we at now? 10:41 a.m. You know what bothers me a little bit right now? Bothers me, but like enough to where I'm like, fuck all you, It's something I can shrug off once I get out of the mindset. But it does bother me, and it probably always will. Are people that would be listening to the things I'm saying right now, going and just kind of going, you know what? No, not giving it any credit, not giving it when it is extremely. I'm not saying you have to think that I'm the smartest guy in the world or what I'm. It's more the ideas that are not my own right now that are coming out of my mouth that are well established enough in Western thought as value as meriting your time and attention, important things that you should think about, hold in esteem, high regard. People that don't. Luckily, though, again, it's easier when you don't have to. I don't. There are people that do because there are people like that for everyone. Luckily, I don't hear. I don't experience much of it. I will say that there aren't people that like try to get in my face and tell me, but it's just that I know that they're out there anyway. You know what I mean? Of course, because everyone has naysayers, and like I said about my family experience, I'm used to that very same thing right from the start of my family environment. And one of my favorite things to do, honestly, I wish I could do this more. In fact, it's a dream of mine, is just being in a social situation where people gang up on somebody and I kind of like talk them out of that. As in like, no, this is not going to happen right now because this is a situation where this is this and that is that, and the way to behave in that situation is, I do it enough in my own life for myself, though I would love to do it for someone else, Like, I'll give you an example. It's very, very common for drug addicts to sometimes, to have motives for being other than hospitable, polite, or gracious in social situations. I do my best to ignore it as much as possible because it's not something you need to sit there and figure out. You just need to know how you're supposed to behave in them. And, a common example is going into a room where there's like, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5, a room full of drug addicts you don't know, right? And no one says anything to you. Let's say you gotta wait till like your friend comes back or whatever, and no one says anything to you. Just kind of like cuts that ice or whatever. And not, sometimes people are busy. I'm talking, as I mentioned, with motive, with intent doing that. Like doing that for a reason they shouldn't be doing it for. Like that exists. Wow, I don't think I need to sell you on that, right? Because it's true. We all know there's a lot of people up to things they shouldn't be doing that are doing drugs. It's true. But, well, anyway, one of the ways I've long been in the habit now, in situations like that, where I know someone is doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they wouldn't admit to doing so out loud, is to just bring that out. Usually to make myself feel better, not to castigate them. Like, let's say, for example, if you do have people in a room that are not saying anything to try to make you feel more comfortable in a situation where they should, because it's the polite and right thing to do, maybe at least saying that, well, that's normal, right? Just nobody say anything when the new person has walked in the room, and just, do your best to kind of feel uncomfortable with their presence. Like, that's, the point is not to blame them, even though it is blaming them. The point is to make you feel, to fart, and now feel normal because you farted. That's the idea. You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. For example, don't worry about the unpleasant truth that, like, that's not gonna, you're not trying to go over with a joke on people. The situation's already fucked anyway. You know what I mean? You're talking to people that are lacking even that social grace to respond to a guest with, like, hospitality. So, like, how much worse is it? It's not going to get much worse. I mean, of course, if you feel those people might shoot you if you said that, don't do it. Okay? Obviously, use common sense. But you know what I mean? Like, don't worry. You're not doing any damage by that. It may not be always the most tactful thing to do. Always choose the most tactful thing you can do. But there are times where, it's not important. It's not as important to kiss as much ass as it is to just be real in order to achieve something that's much more important and good in a situation. And that's what that is. But as I said, it's been my dream to be able to, I have never done that for someone else in a social situation. I've never been able to really, in a way that is satisfying like I do it for myself. And I would love to. I would just, oh my God, how I would love to be like, no, we're not going to make this person feel this totally and completely justified person feel unjustified, weird, and awful for feeling their emotions and being themselves in this situation, are we? No, we're not, Like, I know, for example, I'm not going to change other people, but I would love to be that stabilizing presence for someone else that needs it. You know what I mean? I would love to do that because, it's terrible to go through that. It's bullshit, I want to be the guy in a room with someone that's having a hard time because everyone else is telling that person it's nighttime when that person sees with their own eyes that it's daytime. And they're going, no, you don't know what you're talking about. It's nighttime. Like, to be there and go, like, no, don't worry, no. I'm here with you. We understand this, along with the rest of the people, and here's why. Here's why. We know it's day. Okay? Because it's important to know, how we come to know the things we know. That's what I'm saying, method. That's why I'm sitting here talking about all of this right now. What does this have to do with Holy Week and Jesus? Everything. I hope you didn't miss that by now. I really hope not. You're talking about yourself, though. You're focusing more on you than Jesus right now. It's impossible to do that. It really is. Now, we will all find reasons to call someone out for that at times, right? But really, there is no way. There are just ways that we don't like, we don't prefer. We'll call things ungodly because we have in a sense, like I did earlier, he'll tell me something ungodly, right? When I'm waiting for God's. But, nothing, in the true definition of what is godly, we have to consider everything because it's all from God, There wouldn't be any liars, there wouldn't be any crackheads, there wouldn't be any murderers, there wouldn't be any pedophiles, there wouldn't be any, all the things that, I don't know, think of something you don't like. You don't like the color purple, or you don't like someone's attitude or song, or, just something, something that is your bête noir. Well, as much as we don't like it or think it shouldn't exist, it's as much of God's image and personality as everything else. It really is. I don't want to see anybody else go through. I know this sounds like I'm putting myself on, getting on a high horse here. It is not about that. It is literally about others. That's where I'm concerned. I don't want to see, and some of the things I'm going through right now, I don't want to see anyone else go through. I absolutely want to do all that I can to prevent other people from going through some of these things, because they shouldn't have to. For example, again, I guess this is the time to talk about this, but I lack a support structure that I should not lack. There's no, sometimes we lack support because we destroy that support, or because we don't nourish that support, and we need to know, like, when we're guilty of that, or when we are doing exactly what we're supposed to do and other people are not responding to that as they should. I have a lot of that in my life right now. Like, honestly, it makes me go, holy shit, I didn't think that was possible. But it doesn't, I don't bitch about it. I'm not bitter about it. In fact, the reason I do this is to prevent that. I'm not interested in, I was interested in, calling people out because it feels good to get pissed. It really does. It really does. Even if we are of the mindset at the moment that we would think, no, it doesn't. Anger doesn't feel like, no, it does. That's why we are so given to it. It does feel good. And that's what's one of the things that's so terrible about it. It's one of the most dangerous things to express, but it shouldn't be suppressed either. But it's a tricky, anyway. Well, let's stop there because my thought just dropped, and there we go. You know what's good though? I talk about this stuff so much, and all of it is so tautologous that even when I lose my thought in the middle of a sentence, I don't feel. I know that I left off at a good place. Like, honestly, even if it's not, I haven't completed that particular thought. I've talked about all of it with so many examples since the beginning of this video. I've made myself clear, and I'm well understood. Why is that important? Already talked about all that too, right? So talk about yourself when you need to, and know that you are talking about Christ and focusing on Christ, because there's no other. There's a difference, what is the word? Oh my God! Simple terms I cannot think of right now. Not narcissism, but self-centered. There you go. That technical shop talk in psychology. Self-centeredness, the bad kind, is of a completely different beast than that. Honestly, not being self-centered in the good way is number one, kind of impossible if you're a human, and you open your eyes and perceive the world beginning right here. You must be self-centered, because nothing else is going to work if you don't take care of that, right? But also, those are the kind of people that are going to be like thinking, about myself. What kind of impact do I have on the world? Do I go around wasting others' time, or am I respectful of their time, or do I, it's not the end result that's so important. It's the idea. Like, I think that is, we're going to vary in how much, for example, how much of a story we think we need to tell someone at that time. Hey, right? Like today, I'm going on and on and on, and I think it's important. Someone else may not, right? But am I doing my best to be respectful of what I am imposing on your ear? Absolutely. And just doing that, I mean, I don't know how much that goes on, but I can tell you this: there's a definitely noticeable poverty of it in the world, which I have no interest in bitching about, but I definitely, it should. Yeah, I'll point it out. But been there, done that. Been there, done that. How much time do we have? I'm going to continue going on. I was going to make this a long one. All right. There's a woman that I was just talking about with a friend of mine, or a mutual acquaintance. I'm trying to think right now how much anonymity to keep. You know what? Screw it. I was just talking with my friend Peter Steeler about a lady that used to frequent the San Bruno Hospitality House shelter. I don't know if she still does or how she's doing, but when I was homeless, we all called the God Lady, and she was known for literally, she was easily offended, and she was something in her life had made her so used to feeling indignant that she often would, honestly, it would be the first reaction to a lot of situations, even when people hadn't done her wrong. And I was saying that when, the God Lady she would go on these, St. John the Baptist and St. Paul, style castigations of other people in the middle of the shelter, and it was it was weird, right, for everyone. That's not, but I remarked to Peter how much I felt her pain there. Like, oh my God, there were so many days when I heard her going, bitching someone out that I didn't have, a problem with necessarily, but I'm glad that glad that she was saying it for me, for somebody. You know what I mean? I definitely felt the words before, but the problem with that though is getting fixated on that. It was, you become an unhappy victim of everyone else's misery. And let me tell you, there's a lot of bullshit out there. Seriously, I'm going to tell you, there are enough people out there not offering apologies to people that I would tell you, if at all possible, if you value your sanity, if you value the integrity of your soul, make it as unimportant as you possibly can whether or not you get apologies from people, because that is if that's important to you, guess what? I think you're going to be a little bit fucked in many situations, because a lot, unless you have unusually good luck, where some people do, and that warms my heart. Some people, are in social situations with a support structure that is exactly as it should be, where I have lacked it, and I'm always happy to see it. It excites me, for example, a lot of my friends are not married and don't get married. It's a whole lifestyle and set of values that is just it's not of necessity that it is either a shoot or just not even a part of their world, but it just as a common consequence, as I said earlier, that de facto it isn't. So when one of my friends recently, from that group of friends, got married, I was just I felt like I was getting married. It was pretty awesome. I love to see people getting married. know why I'm like that, because a lot of people I know are not. They don't naturally gravitate or think of situations like that. Like something they don't have doesn't feel like they're getting it. But then enough people do. But I'm going to tell you, I'm glad I don't take that. There are a lot of people out there that their natural disposition to like someone getting an advantage that they didn't get, bitterness. And I don't want to know. I understand that it happens, but I don't seek to, that's not a trait that I want to develop, because those people are like, they're miserable. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be less like that, not more. And I remember a time in my life where it was more of an issue to me in a situation where I had been wronged. Not focusing on the injustice of that situation seemed unjust itself at one time. I remember that. I remember going like, no, it's, and you know what? I still agree with that. It's not that my attitude toward that has changed. It's that I've realized, hold that importance on that, yes, but also realize it's more important, okay, not to burn down your own house with anger because you need to live there. You need to make sure that you're not, whatever you're doing is not destroying your vessel, your home, your soul, your whatever you want to call it, like where it all begins for you, where everything starts. Nothing is sent. You don't want to damage. That said, I do. I'm a drug addict. That's been a drug addict for 20 years, and I've smoked cigarettes for longer than that. So I've done, but. So what's the justification for that? Because my dad always, it's funny with my dad. He often jokes about that. I think he's gotten more understanding about it now. But my family would be like, oh, like you're the person to talk about that. Like, well, first of all, yeah, I am. Anyone is, because it's not. First of all, we cannot control those things. Those things are outside of our control completely. We do the best we can with them. I mean, for example. Can someone that's fat talk about weight loss with knowledge? Yeah, they can. They can tell you a lot about it. Not every single fat person, but I'm saying it's still possible to happen, because there are many things about being obese that are outside of our best efforts to control it. So, like, it's funny. We don't want to see a fat person, though, on TV telling you about weight loss. Like, we're like, because we want their results, right? Well, think about this. Yeah, we all want people that look the part too. They walk the walk, right? In our mind. But someone that is obese could be walking the walk just as much. You know what I mean? Because it's, again, maximizing their part in the situation. They could be incredibly knowledgeable. In fact, really, we should want that. But, I mean, again, I'm sorry, I do understand without question. I know how television advertising works. Like, it doesn't work that way for that. You know what I mean? Like, it just, we can't, it's just not going to do. But it's funny because I think everyone groks that, though. I think they grok that, it's possible for a fat person to have a lot to say on the subject of weight loss. But, collectively, groupthink, we don't accept it for things like advertising or situations where we want to defend ourselves with an ad hominem argument against someone else by saying, what can you tell me about that? Look at your results, when we know better. I wish I saw more drug addicts doing what I'm doing right now. Not because I'm so great, but because you're right, God. I don't need to qualify that. So I guess it's okay that you didn't give me the end of that sentence. But like, wow, there needs to be more of it. Why do I feel justified in prescribing that for other people? Which is something that usually it's wise to be very conservative about prescribing what's right for other people, because it's going to lessen their misery as much as anything is going to, and the other will only increase it. And all I know is, you know why I want other people to be happy? You know why I want you to be fulfilled, even if it means you being fulfilled in ways that I'm not? It's because also that's one less prick walking around in the world making my life difficult or anyone else's, because it doesn't, even if it doesn't impact me, it comes back indirectly. So that's the way I often look at it. I do not want to be responsible for helping to create another person out there walking around that's just going to that come back and boomerang, me or someone else, because I fucked them up in some way, Take that with a grain of salt, right? No, none of us really have the power to, I feel like I lack that kind of power. You don't I'm going to fuck someone up. But collectively, if we have a lot of experiences, right? My comment or my treatment may be just one more. It's the final straw, or just the one that does not depart from, that isn't the individual voice apart from that noise that they experience usually. So I have, hold on 1 second. So I've had this very unusual dynamic that I've never had before in my life with my landlord. And I'm very grateful for it. I understand why he can't respond to it in the way I hope that he would or would like him to. I get that, but at the same time, I can't stop doing it. And I do know that he would rather me not be the way I am. And what I mean is, it's strange. I've never had, I've got like I said before, just to sum it up, I've got a big problem with him right now. Most people would be very personal. It'd be very, there would be the kind of shit that, I don't know, you key someone's car over, or you get nasty, you hit below the belt, right? And I have not felt, I talk to him like he's my friend, really, because I feel that. I don't feel, for some strange, I just don't feel, angry toward him. Now, the other day, let's say, I'll be honest with you, at that moment, because I was pissed off with, I was having some trouble getting some stuff under the sink to not leak anymore. And so, of course, I was getting frustrated because the angle I had to bend down and my knees were hurting. And, it wasn't easy. It was a strain, right? And at that moment, when I had to point something out to him, I said to my other friend, I want to hang that man with piano wire right now. And I said, right now. But, that goes away. That isn't my lasting feeling. You know what I mean? Of course you're going to be, when I'm having a problem that I shouldn't have to do, and the person that's responsible for it is you, who not by accident caused the situation, but acted against what you knew you were supposed to do, and what's right, and what's good for everyone, it's natural to be angry at that moment. But, you don't want to sit in that space, like I said. And I've never had a situation, I send my landlord things that are kind of, they're weird. To send your landlord when you have a situation like this going on, like I do with him. And I know that, but I can't help it. And I would rather be doing that, because it's better for both of us than to be, I'm sure he expected a ton of videos, all these videos since the incident first began. I bet you he expected me to talk shit about him in every one of them. And he hasn't come up very much at all, in a way that's even surprised me a little bit. But when he has come up, it hasn't been to talk shit. It's been to point out what's wrong about the situation, and sometimes you can't do that and flatter somebody if they're up to shit that they shouldn't be, willfully. But beyond that, the tone was not to blame him either. I'm not interested in doing that, honestly. I'm not interested in making Jack's life more miserable. I don't think that it would be good for him or anyone else if I did that, as I just explained, If he won the lottery tomorrow, I would be happy for him. I wouldn't feel like he doesn't deserve that. I mean, he's got a family, he's got kids, he's got, you know what I mean? He's entitled to have good things happen to him, just as I am. I'm way more broke than he is. He has a lot more money than I do. But that should not impact, that shouldn't be a reason why I feel he's unjustified to win the lottery. You know what I mean? Yeah, some people are more broke than others, but that doesn't mean that you should be hateful and spiteful about someone else's getting something. Remember the parable of the day laborers, where they show up at different times of the day, and at the end of the day they all get paid the same wage, and then the people that worked for all the day or most of it got pissed off, like, hey, why is this guy that came in and only worked for the last hour, why is he getting the same amount of money that I got? And the response is, you know what, did I pay you a fair wage? Are you getting what's right for you for that amount of time you work? Yes. Well then, apart from that, don't worry what I choose to give to some and do for someone else, That's not impacting you. That isn't. But it's not, again though, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, if you feel that way, you're like, yeah, no, it's natural to feel that way, but you don't want to, you want to try to get out of that space and understand why you shouldn't be in that space. Because it really does, you shouldn't be concerned that someone else shouldn't get something that you did not get for that reason. Because it's not an injustice issue. It's I don't want you to be fulfilled. Because I didn't get fulfilled like that. And that's a completely different thing. It's not, sometimes those issues can be kind of couched into justice, like the death penalty's like that. You know what I mean? The death penalty, a lot of times, let's face it, you can come up with all the unemotional arguments for the death penalty you want. There are some things that just piss people off so much they feel better if the person is killed. It's revenge, is really what it is. And like, damn it, oh, I forget where I was going with that. Shit, all right. But I know that if you remembered what I was talking about, because you most certainly have a better memory than me right now, short-term memory, that, yeah, I feel good where I left that, though. My dad, though, would be a person with certain people, and me, to plunge into the attack on that, though, when he knows that he shouldn't. I don't remember what I just said, but again, I'm certain and assured of the integrity of the entire message. It doesn't mean that, like, you don't even know what you're talking about anymore, right? There's a difference between losing your thought mid-sentence and not knowing what you're talking about. But to people that are not trying to do you right, no, there isn't. Not one they're willing to acknowledge, right? So again, that's what I do. That's to ameliorate that situation is I do it aloud for myself, If someone, I make sure that I make a point of stating aloud what is the protocol, what's reasonable to expect in this situation socially. So that way, you know what I mean, to minimize the drive of someone else to tell me that, like, up is down and down is up and day is night and night is day. You know what I mean? They'll still do it, but, you know, inject as much stabilizing. Like, no, let's establish here why 2 plus 2 equals 4, and why there are 24 hours in a day, and why, and this is, you know, and this is what you do, and that most people are on this page. It is, yes, is it appeal to authority and appeal to popularity? Absolutely, and with good reason. There are some things that, like, no, we're going to accept them as common sense, and you don't have to, but that doesn't mean that most of the world in common, you know, when congregating to, like, will not agree with what I'm saying, okay? And aside from that, I know that's the case, and so I can, you know, take steps to not engage with you if I need to, right? I mean, it really is, honestly, you save yourself a lot. Take it from someone who knows, oh my God, I used to, especially as a typical Pisces personality trait. It was very important to me at one time in my life, much more important than it is now, because it still has some importance, for you to not only hear what I had to say, but acknowledge the truth of something that is indisputably true. Like, that's another dumb thing. You know what I mean? If you don't want to fucking believe that 2 plus 2 equals 4, then your dumb ass can go do that. Why should I get hurt, right? But a lot of us get hurt by that. You know what I mean? Like, we have to, like, it's not right unless you admit. I mean, really, is there anything less in need of that effort than a universal truth? And I came to that realization at some point in my life. And I thought, Jesus Christ. I mean, like, are you, you know, because stuff like getting, you know, defending like institutions or things that just didn't need defense at all because they speak for themselves. It's something I used to really, you know, ruin my day over. And I try to encourage people not to do that, you know. Not as much, but I don't let it go unsaid when it can help. But I don't spend too much, honestly. People just, wow, it's amazing. It's amazing how uninterested in life ropes people are when they are drowning and stuff. Like, I mean, not even, you know what I mean? Like, not even just uninterested, but like literally, like, that's the enemy. That's the enemy. Like, all right, you know, I could go on you know, on a diatribe about how terrible it is and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but, you know, I'm not really interested in doing that as much anymore because it doesn't change it. It really doesn't, you know? Yeah, it's a terrible thing. We all know it. But, like, just lamenting how terrible something is over and over again without going anywhere else with it is just unappealing. You know? There's enough to cause unpleasantness in our day without doing anything about it. Why rehearse something that's just shit, you know? Why be why be like Fox News or, you know, Republican pundit, right? You just think about it. The attitude there is like, and I'm not putting it down, but again, let's call it what it is people who enjoy getting together to get pissed off about the things they don't like. That's what, you know, that's what Bill O'Reilly talks about, right? Most of the time, he'll mention things that he likes, but he spends most of the time talking about the things that piss him off, that are people that are wrong and they need to change, and they're ruining America, right? Because it's satisfying. I know what that feels like, because it is. When you're in that space, it is satisfying to get together and vent, or, you know, your hatred and stuff like that. But, you know, there are a lot of things that are satisfying to do immediately when you're in that space that are not wise, and that could be done a better way without, you know, destroying yourself. And you need to pray for the grace to do that. I mean, I was a Bill O'Reilly at one time in my life. I know what that feels like, you know? It does feel good, but I wouldn't want to do that again. I wouldn't want to be like that inside. I remember that anger, just the hostility, just the bitterness that I had. Walked around with, even when I was in a good mood, that was just still there. in a way that I didn't feel back then, but now with the way I feel, I can look at it and go, oh God, I was still walking around with that. And I guess that's why we pray for people, because you can't really talk most people into those things as much as we can extol the virtues, right? But I still will, because I enjoy talking about what's constructive and good. And it merits talking about, especially, in light of what you could be listening to. I can tell you this. If you spent the 2 hours listening to this today, you didn't waste your fucking time. I can tell you that. You just spent your time doing something pretty constructive. I'm not going to say better than this or better than that, but like good use of your time. If you're willing to think about these things, about your life, about the impact you have on others, about what your purpose is and why you do what you do and how you can do it better, genuinely so, not just like, yeah, I'll give it a charity. Could you really have spent any better time, right? So I'm going to remind you, as I do at the end of every video, to brush your teeth, to floss, and to say your prayers. And I'll see you in the next video. No one's ever going to watch this, is my attitude. But, someone eventually will. Bless you. Bless you. Someone will eventually. But it's more important that it's out there to find, even for people to watch parts of, because I know that we're all busy. I love you all, and peace.